Picture this. You're working security, when suddenly you see a gun pointed at the person you're paid to protect. You have maybe half a second to react. Do you duck? Do you call for backup? Or do you throw your body between the bullet and the target? When bodyguard Mike Thompson faced that impossible choice at Elvis's concert, his decision lasted a fraction of a second, but changed two families forever. What happened next proved that some acts of heroism deserve rewards that last generations. If you believe that true heroism deserves infinite gratitude, this story will restore your faith in human decency. Hit that subscribe button because we're sharing the most incredible acts of loyalty that prove some bonds go beyond any job description. Mike Thompson wasn't your typical bodyguard. At 34 years old, he was a former Marine sergeant who'd served 2 tours in Vietnam before finding work in personal protection. Standing 6'4" with hands the size of dinner plates, Mike looked like he could handle any threat that came his way. But what made Mike special wasn't his size or his military training, it was his heart. He'd been working for Elvis for 3 years, and in that time he'd become more than just security. Mike was the guy who remembered Lisa Marie's favorite ice cream flavor, who helped Priscilla with her packages, and who always made sure Elvis had a hot cup of coffee waiting after every show. Mike had a family of his own, his wife Sarah, and their 2 young children, Tommy, 8, and little Jenny, 5. The job with Elvis paid well enough that Sarah could stay home with the kids, something that meant everything to Mike after growing up with parents who both worked multiple jobs just to survive. "This job is a blessing," Mike often told Sarah. "Mr. Presley treats us like family, not just employees." But Mike understood that his primary responsibility was Elvis's safety, and he took that duty more seriously than anyone realized. By March 1977, Elvis's security team had been dealing with increasingly concerning fan behavior. The usual autograph seekers and over-eager admirers had been joined by more unstable individuals who seemed to believe they had personal relationships with Elvis. There had been break-in attempts at Graceland, disturbing letters that went beyond typical fan mail, and incidents at concerts where fans had tried to rush the stage with concerning intensity. Mike and the rest of the security team had been briefed on several individuals who were considered potential threats. One name that kept appearing in their reports was David Morrison, a 30-year-old drifter from California who'd been following Elvis's tour schedule and showing up at multiple venues. Morrison had been ejected from 3 different concerts for disruptive behavior, and his letters to Elvis had become increasingly erratic and threatening. "This guy's not just a fan," Mike told his security partner Jim Watson after reviewing Morrison's file. "He's got that look in his eyes like he thinks Elvis owes him something personal." Hotel security had been alerted to watch for Morrison, but in the chaos of a Las Vegas show with thousands of fans, one unstable individual could easily slip through the cracks. March 19, 1977. Elvis was performing his second show at the International Hotel in Las Vegas. The venue was packed with 2,000 people, and the energy was electric. Elvis was in great form that night, moving through his hit songs with the charisma and power that had made him a legend. Mike was positioned stage left, his usual spot where he could see both Elvis and scan the audience for any unusual activity. 3 songs into the set, during Love Me Tender, Mike noticed something that made his blood run cold. In the 3rd row center section, a man was standing when everyone else was sitting. More concerning, the man's hands were moving inside his jacket in a way that Mike's military training immediately recognized as someone accessing a concealed weapon. Mike squinted through the stage lights and felt his heart skip a beat. It was David Morrison, the unstable fan they'd been watching for, and Morrison was pulling something metallic from his jacket. What happened next took place in the space of maybe 3 heartbeats, but Mike's military training slowed time down enough for him to process what was happening and make a choice that would change everything. Morrison had a gun, a .38 caliber revolver that caught the stage lights as he raised it toward Elvis, who was completely unaware of the threat, lost in the music and focused on connecting with his audience. Mike had multiple options in that split second. He could shout a warning which might cause panic but would alert Elvis to duck. He could try to tackle Morrison from the side of the stage, but the distance was too great. He could draw his own weapon and try to take down Morrison, but in a crowded venue the risk to innocent people was too high. Instead, Mike Thompson made the choice that defined who he really was. He launched himself directly between Elvis and the gun. Morrison fired just as Mike's body blocked the line of sight between the weapon and Elvis. The .38 caliber bullet caught Mike in the left shoulder, spinning him around and sending him crashing into the amplifiers at the side of the stage. The gunshot was so loud that it cut through the music like a thunderclap. Elvis stopped singing mid-word, and 2,000 people turned toward the chaos in the audience. Morrison was immediately tackled by other security personnel and Las Vegas police, who had been stationed throughout the venue. But everyone's attention quickly shifted to Mike Thompson, who was lying on the stage floor, blood spreading across his white security shirt, his face pale but his eyes still alert and focused on Elvis. "Mr. Presley," Mike gasped as Elvis knelt beside him. "Are you okay? Did I get there in time?" Elvis, shaken to his core by what had just happened, took Mike's hand. "Mike, you saved my life. You took a bullet meant for me." "That's the job, sir," Mike whispered before the paramedics arrived and rushed him to the hospital. While Mike underwent emergency surgery to remove the bullet and repair the damage to his shoulder, Elvis paced the hospital waiting room like a caged animal. He'd cancelled the rest of his Las Vegas engagement immediately, despite the financial implications, and refused to leave until he knew Mike would be okay. Sarah Thompson arrived at the hospital 3 hours after the shooting, having caught the first flight from Memphis with her 2 children. When she saw Elvis in the waiting room, she broke down completely. "Mrs. Thompson," Elvis said, standing up and taking her hands, "your husband is the bravest man I've ever known. He saved my life without thinking about his own safety. Is he going to be okay?" Sarah asked through tears. "The doctors say he'll recover fully," Elvis replied. "But Sarah, I need you to know something. Mike didn't just save my life tonight. He saved Lisa Marie's daddy, Priscilla's husband, and the person my fans depend on. What he did, there's no way to ever repay that kind of loyalty." Mike's recovery took 6 weeks. The bullet had damaged nerves and muscle tissue in his shoulder, ending his career in personal protection. He'd never again have the physical capability to handle the demands of bodyguard work. During those 6 weeks, Elvis visited Mike every single day, not just quick courtesy visits, but hours-long conversations where Elvis got to know Mike's family and learn about their dreams, their struggles, and their hopes for the future. What Elvis discovered was that Mike and Sarah had been quietly supporting Sarah's elderly mother, who needed expensive medication they could barely afford. Tommy had been diagnosed with a learning disability that required special tutoring the family couldn't pay for. And little Jenny had shown remarkable artistic talent, but art supplies and lessons were luxuries beyond their reach. "Mike," Elvis said during one of their hospital conversations, "you gave me my life back. I want to give you and your family something in return." What Elvis did for the Thompson family went so far beyond gratitude that it redefined what loyalty meant. First, he paid off their house completely, ensuring that Sarah and the children would always have security no matter what happened. Then he established a trust fund for Tommy's education, hiring the best tutors and specialists to help him overcome his learning challenges. For Jenny, he set up an art scholarship that would cover any artistic education she wanted to pursue for the rest of her life. For Sarah's mother, Elvis arranged for all her medical expenses to be covered permanently, removing the financial burden that had been crushing the family for years. But the most meaningful gift was what Elvis did for Mike himself. "Mike," Elvis said when the bodyguard was finally released from the hospital, "I know you can't do security work anymore because of your shoulder, but I've got a proposition for you." Elvis had purchased a small security consulting company and put Mike in charge of running it. The company would provide security services to other entertainers and businesses, and Mike would use his military experience and knowledge of the industry to build something of his own. "You'll never have to worry about putting your body on the line again," Elvis told him. "But you can use everything you've learned to help other people stay safe." The company became incredibly successful, partly because of Mike's expertise, but mostly because everyone in the entertainment industry knew the story of the man who'd taken a bullet for Elvis Presley. Over the years, Elvis's gratitude extended far beyond the initial gifts. When Tommy graduated high school despite his learning challenges, Elvis was there cheering in the audience. When Jenny had her first art show at age 16, Elvis bought 3 of her paintings and displayed them prominently at Graceland. Mike's security company grew to employ dozens of former military personnel who needed second careers, and Elvis quietly recommended the company to every entertainer he knew. But perhaps the most beautiful part of the story was how the relationship between the two families evolved. Mike and Sarah became like extended family to Elvis, Priscilla, and Lisa Marie. Their children grew up calling Elvis Uncle Elvis, and he took his role as their honorary uncle seriously. When Elvis passed away in August 1977, Mike Thompson was one of his pallbearers. But Elvis's gratitude didn't end with his death. In his will, Elvis had made provisions to ensure that the Thompson family would be taken care of for generations. Tommy Thompson went on to become a successful teacher, using his own experience with learning challenges to help other struggling students. Jenny became a renowned artist, whose work has been displayed in galleries across the country. Mike's security company continued to thrive, and he never forgot the lesson Elvis had taught him about the difference between doing a job and building a family. Years later, when Mike was asked about that split-second decision on the Las Vegas stage, he always gave the same answer: "I didn't think about it." When you see someone you care about in danger, you don't calculate the risks, you just act. But Sarah Thompson had a different perspective. Mike didn't just save Elvis's life that night. Elvis saved our whole family's future. That's what real gratitude looks like. It doesn't just say thank you, it changes lives. This incredible story teaches us that loyalty isn't just about doing your job, it's about being willing to sacrifice everything for someone you believe in. Mike Thompson could have found cover, called for backup, or protected himself first. Instead, he chose to put Elvis's life above his own safety, but equally important is Elvis's response. True gratitude doesn't end with a thank you card or a bonus check. It looks for ways to transform the lives of people who've shown extraordinary loyalty. Mike Thompson's split-second decision to take a bullet for Elvis reminds us that heroism often happens in the blink of an eye, when ordinary people make extraordinary choices. But Elvis's lifetime of gratitude toward the Thompson family shows us that recognizing and rewarding loyalty is just as important as showing it. In a world where loyalty is often taken for granted, this story proves that some bonds transcend any job description, and some acts of courage deserve rewards that last forever. This incredible story proves that true loyalty and infinite gratitude can change families for generations. If Mike and Elvis's bond of heroism and thankfulness touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel and share this story with someone who understands what real loyalty looks like. Let us know in the comments about a time when someone showed extraordinary loyalty, because these stories remind us that heroes are all around us, ready to make split-second decisions that change everything.